Previously on input left. D. I won't do drugs. A. Won't have an attitude. R. I will respect myself. E. I will educate me. No. And then there's several really exciting verses, and I'll have to link this in the description. Which these verses include: check your attitude at the door. I do not want to score. I only want to win in this drug war. I can't believe drug war is in the song. Hello, everybody. This is Joe and Will with your favorite Let's Play Pokemon Diamond input left playthrough. I'm so excited. We're gonna take on our first gym, and we did some grinding up of our Mons. So are we going straight into the gym, or how are we doing this?
Well, first we need to go meet Rourke in the mine, and there's a few trainers we can fight in there.
Right.
I know I don't have to fight every trainer, and that's like sort of optimal to just like not fight trainers unless you have to. But one, I kind of want the money, and two, it's I don't know, like skipping as many trainers as possible just isn't fun. So we're sort of deliberately hampering ourselves to bring that content to you guys.
The money will help with this fossil purchase anyway.
Right, which we're gonna want to do as soon as possible, I think.
Oh, okay. Really changed your opinion on that one.
Well, I don't know if we need to do it before the gym, but like once we beat the gym, we're gonna want it like as soon as possible. That's sort of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I don't think she's a trainer.
No, I know. There's at least one item right now.
I really love Orberg City. Like the kind of, I know it's tiny, but the design of it with the all these like construction happening. It's very.
Yeah, we're in Joe Manchin's hometown right now. We're right in the middle of West Virginia.
Yeah, these are the underpaid mine workers.
Yeah,
we're fighting for your minimum and your union. Do you think these Machops are unionized?
I mean, this is a world with very, very free healthcare, so maybe. That's what I'm talking about. Big Pearl, yes, sir.
Oh, was that random, or was that what it?
Yeah, it was random. I mean, I know that there's an item there. Normally, it's like I think it might be like Stardust or something. Normally, actually, but Big Pearl is more valuable.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of imagine in this world, like, are there fights over Pokemon rights? Like, can you just employ Pokemon to do free labor? I mean, I guess you can't give them money. I mean, maybe you could.
Perish the thought, yeah.
What do they eat? Berries in this game? It's just berries, berry pies. Or
yeah, it probably would pay them with berries.
Yeah, here's some orange berries for a good day's work. Our Pokemon stealing jobs. Oh, is this our encounter or no?
No, we already got a Zoomerl here. That is Greta Thunberg.
Greta's
this thing's very fast, so there's a chance we can't run from it. So
yeah,
I'm just gonna switch to ensure we can.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, you can charm with Mayor Bernie, right?
Oh, I forgot to turn on the animations. Charm it. I don't think Mayor Bernie is
Char.
Oh, Char. Oh,
Char.
I could, but
Ember.
I'm gonna save for the trainer fights, which will be harder.
Yeah. So, have you heard about the comments? Actually, I think you sent me an article. But I wanted to talk about it on the show. Ron Johnson, our bad boy Ron Johnson.
Not our boy.
Not our boy. Hashtag not my boy, Ron Johnson.
Hashtag not my boy, yeah.
You heard about...
So but just before you get started here, this is actually quite an intimidating Pokemon because it has rollout. And I want to kill as fast as possible in case it starts rolling out. Especially because like even Kamala's weak to it, right?
Shoot.
So I don't know if the play is to stay in here with the Zoomerl and just try to take it out with Greta, or if I should consider switching to Kamala right away to like paralyze it and start taking it.
Miltank has a high special defense, or what is it?
It's very bulky. I think it has like a lot of high high HP, high. It's surprisingly fast as well. I can't tell you which of its defenses is stronger.
It's just a good Pokemon.
It's just an all-around very solid Pokemon. Yeah.
What's Kamala's strongest attack?
Twister.
Right, it's just Twister.
which is not like a ton of damage, but it can flinch. Like if we paralyze a thunder wave, then we can like para-flinch it, maybe make it a lot less likely to successfully. Like I think I'm gonna play it safe. I think I'm gonna try to switch right away because I just don't think Greta's damage output is gonna be enough here, and if it starts rolling out, we might just be in huge trouble.
I mean, I'm not sure what safe is, you know. But
right.
Hopefully this will work.
Well, I think getting it paralyzed as soon as possible to, you know, cut its speed, give it that chance of failing rollout if it should go for it like every turn would be really valuable here. I don't know if it has rollout
Also,
yet.
yeah, totally possible it's just gonna tackle.
Right. Better safe than sorry. All right, so go ahead, Ron Johnson.
Yeah. So he calls the Capitol rioters patriots, and he says if they were Black Lives Matter, that would be
or Antifa.
that would be a real issue. Which is fun.
I did send you this article, yeah.
Yeah. And it's pretty wild, right? In part because I think he said something along the lines of if they were luckily they were patriots, otherwise they would have hurt police and broken laws. Something to that extent, right?
He said like he knows they love our country and they wouldn't do anything like that, basically. That's what he said. Yeah.
And just to correct the factual record on this show,
which like I think everyone on this show, I respect your intelligence enough to know there's something very wrong with what he just said there.
Yeah.
But just in case you didn't pick up on it, go ahead. Let them know.
Just in case you didn't know, they did break laws and attack police officers specifically.
Yeah. They even killed one.
What? That's not laughing matter, but yes.
Sorry, I don't want to laugh at the fact that one of them died, but like
the irony.
It's very contradictory to the statement.
But you know what I think might add value to the conversation though is to get people an idea of like, you know, there's this kind of idea that like, well, obviously this is perpetuated by the right, that like the Black Lives Matter protesters were extremely violent, and obviously the data shows that's not true, right? The data shows something like, I think they said 98% of protesting for Black Lives Matter was peaceful. But also like,
and especially like almost like 100% of it was like peaceful before police showed up as well.
Exactly. I was on the ground for some of it, and like people were just, I mean, we were just like holding up signs and like you know, staying distance. Everybody was like wearing a mask for the most part, right? Extremely like high level of safety, right? Practicing our values, and then the police show up and start like aggressively, right, like ramming into people, throwing things, and then they enforce a curfew. And I'm not saying that no one is to blame for violence on that is protesting on the side of justice for George or anything like that. But the cops really did it. Like, if you wanted to get people to riot, that's in terms of like as a cop, that's how you would do it, right? Like, you were like you would hear them making like comments, right? Like about the protesters and about what's happening, very negative. And it's like you're really trying to bait them on. Like, you want to see this happen.
Yeah. And I suspect that some of them did, right? Oh, yeah. Because the cops know that when it comes to blows, they have the advantage. You know, they are the ones authorized to use force legally, right? So I would not be at all surprised if many of them are eager for things to come to violence with protesters. That's something they desire. They can then paint protesters as aggressors and show that they are upholding law and order.
Well, and I had some... Exactly. I mean, there's the political motivation behind it because, I mean, let's face it, like police federations and their members are extremely political and often right-leaning, and certainly hold a certain idea of
I just want to give a statistic real quick, if you don't mind.
Please.
In 2016, I believe 80%, I think it's about 80% of police officers in the United States who voted in the presidential election voted for Donald Trump.
Oh.
And it wasn't like 20% voted for Clinton. It was like 12% voted for Gary Johnson.
Oh my God.
And then I think like maybe 8% voted for Clinton.
Dude, if this is accurate, that is So
I believe that is a legitimate statistic. I have heard it repeated by credible sources. It may not be quite the exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure.
Right. It's something outlandish like that.
Yeah.
No, but also I had several friends who were arrested during the protests, and
really,
oh yeah, and you know, a lot of times it's like they arrest you, they hold you for an hour, then they let you go, and it's, you know, it's what they do. I don't know. It's just a cop thing.
It's just
hashtag just incarceration things. Yeah, they hold you for a short amount of time, let you go. Most of the time they don't. Nothing is necessarily put on your record. It's more for them. I think they think that like arresting a bunch of people will temporarily will stop the thing from escalating or shut it down, and like that is. I'm not gonna say it's never true, otherwise they wouldn't do it. But I mean, you wanna enrage a movement, go and arrest peaceful protesters. But anyway, yeah, some of my friends were arrested. They would say like, oh yeah, none of the police were wearing masks. Like one friend I think said
really
they stuck us in a bus to like jail us, and like, yeah, there were no PPE. They weren't practicing anything. You know, obviously there's you always hear stories of like I needed to pee and they wouldn't let me go anywhere.
Yeah, I did hear a lot of those stories for sure.
Yeah, and oh man, like some of it was sickening even by like I know what the police do standards.
Yeah.
And like to think that like they're packing a bunch of people in like a bus or a tiny space without wearing masks and without practicing in the middle of a pandemic is like something about that seems like another level of
cruelty.
Like, yeah, and it's not just cruelty. It's like you're not even pretending anymore. You know, like if your job is to protect and serve, you know, service with a smile.
Those are the public that you claim to protect. That you are doing that to.
You're literally gonna, yeah. Maybe they also don't. Maybe to their credit, maybe they don't believe that COVID is real. But should they believe that?
To their credit.
I
don't know if that's to their credit.
Well, it's to their credit in the sense that what I'm really accusing them is not even like the kind of experiencing this level of cognitive dissonance, which they should for not enforcing their own beliefs. Like if you thought that, for example, if you thought that throwing stuff at protesters would actually have a net goal, like achieve your goal of reducing crowd violence, yeah, you might be stupid, but at least you're consistent if you actually believe that, right? But and so that's why I say if they actually don't believe in the pandemic, okay, you don't actually think this is part of your goal. But if you do believe there's a virus going around and you're just letting people be exposed because you think they deserve it for the way they acted, you are not protecting, right? This is another level of like heinousness. I don't know.
The only interests you're serving are your own. Yeah,
exactly.
And very like horrific ones at that. I think what has crystallized for me is that the police and their supporters have formed a cognitive dissonance where the public that the police claim to protect and serve does not include anyone deemed criminal by the state. That if you are at any point considered a threat to law and order or the status quo, you are no longer a part of the public. Right? And thus anything can be done to you virtually without recompense. You know, it's like a truly cancel culture in a sense. Like if you really want to talk about cancel culture, you should talk about how right-wingers believe that if you ever espouse any like significantly left point of view, like defunding the police, that you should then lose your civil rights to some extent.
Your life is canceled.
And I'm not exaggerating. There are a lot of people on the right who genuinely believe that. They may not frame it like that, but that is what their beliefs amount to.
And it comes from the right, but also it permeates into the average American, I think, thought process. That I think the mainstream is still like, if you committed a crime, we have no sympathy. Like, you don't get to claim like your rights or anything. And I think that's like a mainstream. Like, you ask a person that claims to be not political, right? That claims to or claims to have like ideas on both sides or whatever. And those people, the standard American value is like, oh, well, those people were rioting. Well, okay, right? Like,
yeah. Well, then, like, I don't really care
right?
if they get roughed up a bit, you know.
I thought you said these people were peacefully protesting, but they were out past curfew. Well, too bad.
They were obstructing a highway.
Right.
Like, even very minor infractions that should fall under your First Amendment rights are grounds for, like, dismissal of basic civil protections.
They were obstructing a McDonald's over the police death of a neighbor.
How dare they?
How dare they? You go protest that somewhere else. Yeah, go to a forest reserve. Yeah.
There's literally nowhere that will be an acceptable place for these people to protest. And we all know that, right? Like, there is a hilarious reckoning to me, hilarious if only for its tragedy, where people sort of came to realize that, like, okay, so, like, when the Black Lives Matter protests really erupted in 2020, people were like, well, they shouldn't be doing it like this. Maybe Colin Kaepernick was right all along. You know, all these people who hated Colin Kaepernick for kneeling during the anthem, right?
Yeah.
They're like, I kind of preferred that in the end, you know? And it just goes to show you how, you know, there's no acceptable level for you, right? Like, they say now, like, you should do something that's, like, very unobtrusive instead of, like, out there in the open, very respectful. Yeah. Which is exactly what Kaepernick did. He just silently knelt. That's all he did. And he talked about his views publicly outside of that. And that was enraging for people.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're not allowed to do something as basic as that, of course, protests are going to escalate, right? And they're going to become more disruptive because nobody's listening when you're silent.
Yeah. And you need to be escalating to have an impact. And
100%. Yeah, that's how protests work. I don't understand how people don't understand this. You know?
Right. Yeah.
It's the point of protest is to be disruptive.
Like, if peaceful means you're just following all the rules, and following all the rules doesn't get you attention, unfortunately you have to take other action, right? And almost all the other action was taken. Almost all of it did not result in any loss in life. Had very limited property damage. And most of it was 100% peaceful and disruptive, yes, and that's good, right? And there still has not been, obviously the trial's happening now, but, like, we still haven't seen justice, right? We still haven't seen.
No, not at all.
I mean, ignoring the larger social problems even for a moment, even, like, the specific incident has not been addressed yet. So yeah, I think overall, I mean, it's sad that, like, the narrative that the right is so effective at convincing people about, like, in certain narratives, and that, like, people were violent, and even though that contradicts so many people's experience of the moment, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, at least
I think it was
yeah.
I was gonna say, I think it was the late great Representative John Lewis who said that you have to make good trouble. You know, yeah, exactly. Civil disobedience is the key. You don't necessarily want it to get to the point where cities are literally being burned down, which is what right-wing people said was happening in, like, Portland, which is extremely far from the truth. But, like, the sorts of things that were happening, you know, occasionally storefronts get a bit roughed up. It's not ideal. I don't want that to happen. But there's a reason it's happening, you know? And some of that is done by bad faith actors who are trying to make the protests seem more violent than they are.
Right.
But, like, the level of disruption that's occurring is still there. Here's what I'm going to say.
Maybe
the people organizing these movements are still expressing extraordinary restraint considering what is happening to them.
Okay.
Right? I would say they would be justified doing a lot more than they currently are. Or at least I would understand if they were doing a lot more than they currently are.
I would say, like, to that point of people taking advantage of the situation, there was a lot of destruction in Minneapolis that happened, as you may know, and so many people that engaged in it were not doing it for political reasons, or were right-wingers. And there's, like, footage, right? There's
bad faith actors, exactly.
Bad faith actors advancing the other political agenda and actually, like, destroying BIPOC-owned businesses and small businesses, right? And that's another real tragedy of it, that So I mean, some people on the left have come to quick defense and said, "Oh, well, it's okay to damage property because whatever." But what they're quick to defend, but they also need to start with I would say, and hot take here. Let's ground ourselves in the facts of the situation, and almost all 100%. That destruction was caused by
either opportunists or straight up people trying to corrupt the movement to make it appear more violent than it actually was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like all these pictures come out, even the people. This is why I also don't like in Minneapolis. What was destroyed was basically like a lot of the historic center of the Latino and Black populations here, and all these people, even on the left, that like got caught for damaging property. They're calling themselves on the left. Were like white suburban like males 20 to 30 chucking like fire bombs for, I don't know if it was for a political reason or just to be anarchists, but it was not caused by the neighbors who actually value their homes.
So. I think I wasn't expecting to get so deep into this topic right now, but I did have something really interesting I wanted to bring up with respect to it, sort of as a tangent. And that is recently, at least the House of Representatives passed what I believe was called like the George Floyd like Policing Reform Act or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. And I read a really fascinating article. I think I'll link it in the description. I believe it was an opinion article from The Guardian. And it's basically titled, I have it here. Yeah, it's titled, "The George Floyd Act Wouldn't Have Saved George Floyd's Life. That Says It All." And it's a really interesting piece about how like all this bill does is like, it like bans chokeholds or whatever and like makes it a little harder for police officers to use force. But like technically George Floyd wasn't put in a chokehold, right? He was knelt on for 8 minutes and he was killed. Yeah. So like the things that the officers engaged in when they killed George Floyd are not made illegal by this bill. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that none of the reforms this bill proposes should be implemented, but they just simply don't go far enough, and they don't address what are the real roots of the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I agree with you. There's a lot of, I think in general, our mindset, especially like the mainstream like Democratic Party too, is, but also overall, people in politics and movement works is often so focused on, addressing like bandaging outcomes versus preventing causes. And you're exactly right. Like in this article, it sounds like it's hitting at the right point, which is not that these reforms are bad. Like, yes, please ban chokeholds, that should not exist. But also, right, like the underlying cause for this and so many other like acts of police violence is not that you don't have to knock. It's that like you knock quickly and then you go kill someone over drugs.
Right. Exactly. Like things like raids should just not be used except for in extreme like active hostage, active shooter situations, in my opinion.
So many people just on raids have lost their lives or been, traumatized for the rest of their lives. And
dude, have you seen some of the footage from the Breonna Taylor raid?
Oh yeah.
Like there's an especially haunting video of its immediate aftermath. They left Breonna Taylor lying in her apartment with no medical treatment for like 10 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. After she was shot like dozens of times. And her boyfriend is there like being handcuffed.
Yeah.
And he says like, "You killed her. Like you killed my girlfriend." He's in so much pain. Mm-hmm. His voice it's horrible to listen to. And at one point, one of the cops that he's like, screaming to just says like, "Good."
Wow. Yeah.
Like, I honestly don't recommend anyone listening, any viewers. I don't think you should watch it unless you are particularly
right now
you're a strong disposition.
Right now you're liking cops and you might need a little bit of a reason not to.
Yeah, unless you think you can watch this video, I don't think you should watch it. But if you do watch it, I think it might push you over the edge to realize it's more than a few bad apples.
Right.
Like, this is the point of the
I love this quote.
And the police revel in the chaos and the misery that they cause, particularly to minorities and disadvantaged people.
I love this quote that, I love Mach Punch, sorry. But I love this quote I saw on, I think I saw it on Twitter or social media, but someone pointing out, the saying is, all these people are saying bad apples, but they forgot the saying is a few bad apples spoil the bunch, right? But to be honest, it's as you're saying, it's not that it's a few bad apples. It's that the predominant culture of policing in the United States is really corrupted and really disgusting, and
every single piece of it is meant like everything that happens as a result of policing is its desired intention. There is nothing happening with policing as it exists right now that is like, oh, that's an unfortunate outcome. We didn't want that to happen, right?
Because if that were true, people would be prosecuted. And, it's like, oh no, the cop is in their rights to do whatever. It's just, they shouldn't. Maybe it's not best practice sometimes, but no, that was fine. That was fine.
Yeah.
I
mean, the fact that nobody's been like meaningfully reprimanded for what happened to Breonna Taylor is just evidence of that.
Well, and there are problems that I think would help fix this culture. Would move the needle towards improving it. And one thing is, like, apparently there's a huge number of cops that have been fired from other departments, and they have basically rules in place where you just go to a different department and there's no way they check your record and you're fine.
It's the Catholic priest treatment.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of that. And there's a lot of like code of silence culture, and those things can be, changed and improved upon over time. But really, like, it's such a, someone's calling me.
Yeah, your notifications are coming through the microphone.
Sorry. It's such a radical revamping that is really needed.
It's from the ground up, I think.
Exactly.
Like, it's not something that you can just do like piecemeal, the way that I think a lot of incrementalists sort of want it to happen, where like we sort of gradually move. Like, no, that, because
I don't know what's
we can't afford to move that slowly here.
At this point, the kind of political moment we're in, I mean, no good I feel like maybe this is overgeneralized. It's definitely overgeneralizing, but let me say this overgeneralized statement that no good person right now wants to become a cop. And like that is maybe that is even a change in these most recent years. Like, even current cops don't want to be cops anymore because they're realizing what that means. And
but like I think something worth pointing out is that most good cops, like the people you want to be cops, either get fired or they quit.
Right.
Because they do something like, report someone else for being a shitty cop that they like gets them blowback from like the union and the whole like fraternity of police and everything. Or if they're just so upset with what they see, with what's happening, that they can't do it any longer.
Exactly.
I was watching one video. It was like a video that had like a bunch of different cops on from like across the country to like discuss contemporary issues with respect to policing. There was like one or two police there from Detroit. And they were actually had like a lot of very nuanced opinions on policing and what it should be like. And he's like, yeah, I don't ever want to draw my gun. I don't think I should never need my gun. My goal is to like protect and serve my community, my neighborhood. Right. And I was like, yeah, those are the people that I would much rather prefer being cops, but they are the minority. Right. And
well, if you revamp the current system, all right, of community protection, however you want to design this new system, you're ultimately going to need people who are going to be ready to intervene in violent situations, right? And like, ultimately, you might need weapons to protect people. You will need weapons to protect people.
But in very few cases.
Exactly. Well, in very few cases, and this is going to be a much smaller group. And if you look at the current pool of police,
and the weapons as well need to be different. Like, they don't need to be like military combat equipment,
You're preaching to the choir, but yes.
Yeah, sorry. Well, I know this is not me telling you, right? This is me saying it for the audience's benefit, right? Yeah. But I know that you already know that. I just want to make it clear to them what we're talking about. You'll need people who are in that position, and the current police
culture does not reflect what I'm looking for, at least.
Not at all.
And maybe there are a few cops that you hear from, and you probably say, oh, that's the kind of person I want to take this very different role in a department with a very different culture. And there are people that I've seen, and I'm sure they sell themselves well on TV, but that say, hey, I'm a person of color. I came from a low income background. I remember when a cop saved my family, and that's why I want to go into policing. And I want to be able to protect people. And yeah, that's the kind of person that I want holding this much smaller position with much less lethal weapons.
Yeah.
And I also wish that everybody had stories like that, when unfortunately cops very seldom help people of color.
It's more
on the off chance they actually do respond within like 3 hours of calling 911.
Exactly.
They often kill someone innocent who's there trying to de-escalate the situation, or just like a random bystander.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, So
what was that?
Sorry, I got a notification. I completely forgot what I was gonna say. 100%. And I think maybe the more common origin story is, I went outside and a black person made me feel uncomfortable, and so I'm gonna become a cop. Or maybe it's somebody broke into my dad's house and he shot and killed them over like his wallet.
Yeah.
And now I want to be a cop to make sure that I can be the one to shoot and kill someone. Maybe this is unfair. Maybe this is just my headcanon, but
I think there are some people like that, but I think a lot of it is just like, yeah, I want to be able to use a weapon. I think a lot of people crave the power that comes with being a police officer. I think that is a huge part of it. I don't know that they necessarily want to kill people, though I suspect there are plenty of people like that who do become cops for that reason. They want that license to kill, specifically so that they can use it. But I think a lot of people just want to feel like they have that additional expanded rights. They want to feel like they can order people around,
I mean, I had classmates when I was a kid. I had classmates who their parents had a lot of guns, right? Gun collections. And they would say, oh, well, this is my gun. And these are all my guns. But obviously, like, knowing that they don't legally become an owner until they're an adult, but they're still 9 years old and they're still being gifted guns. This is in Chicago.
Really?
These are mostly white kids too. Yeah. So white kids in Chicago who, they have their access to the gun safe. They show off their collection. And their fantasy, and I imagine it's reflected in their families as well, they would describe this idea of someone breaking in and them being able to defend themselves, quote unquote, like shoot the person. They would describe that like a fantasy, right? And they would also describe like an apocalypse scenario, like the government comes in, whatever that means, and you need to defend yourself. They would describe that as a fantasy, and like, even like zombie apocalypse. I mean, they're kids and they're like, oh, imagine like a contagion breaks out. Like, again, it was like, this is their dream. This is not a horrifying nightmare scenario. This is like the moment they get to take up arms, shoot people, and like
be the action movie hero.
Granola like out of a bag.
I think there are some people that love the idea that they are the good guy with a gun. They're the ones who are going to drop the active shooter. They're going to be revered as a badass hero. Everyone's going to love them. And that is something they desperately want to happen.
Is that
in some part of their minds?
Is that what our movie culture and our even like games to some extent? Like, I mean, I'm no violent video games cause violence person. I think but I do think that all of our media collectively has a cultural impact, and like good guy with a gun is such a trope, like that people want to.
I think it's less common. I think you're right. I think it's less common than it used to be. Like, I think 80s, maybe 90s action heroes really reinforced this a lot more than maybe more modern movies have. But it's still an extremely prevalent thing.
Good guy with
like
a
the good
hammer.
guy beats up the bad guys and is really cool for doing it.
It's good guy with a heavy hammer or a shield or a bow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are probably some criticisms to be made of even the very popular, like
more detached from reality superhero fantasy movies.
Do you think though that I mean obviously there's
look at the most recent interpretation of Batman. You know, Batman is historically a character who never kills, right?
Yeah.
That is one of his most defining characteristics to a modern audience. And yet, in the most recent interpretation in the DCEU sort of movies, you have a Batman who uses guns at times, deliberately kills his enemies, brands them so that in prison they're targeted by other prisoners. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily indicative of a cultural shift or anything, but it's a sort of thing where that's the kind of person that these people want to be. And I think we need to have a serious reckoning with ourselves. We shouldn't be portraying characters like that in such a positive light, perhaps, you know?
Yeah. It's really a creation of a certain kind of value that... well, anyway, we are 35 minutes in. I do think this is a...
Yeah. I want to end this... Oh, apparently we can't actually get the fossil yet. All right, never mind. Okay.
Well,
maybe after we beat the gym, we can get that fossil.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah, I think this is we finished our grinding.
Yeah.
We're all ready for the gym.
All right. Let's called there. See you on the next episode.
Yeah, we're gonna finish off this first arc.
It's gonna be a while before the second gym as well because of the pacing of this game, but
this game is so slow.
We finally made it. We lost Joe Biden along the way, but we made it.
Yeah, I'm wondering, did the 800 hours I played just get me through the game once?
Yeah, maybe.
All right.
All right, guys. See you later. Hope you enjoyed the conversation.